Welcome back, degenerates. It is week 6 of the NFL season. This is Locked In. I'm your host, Mason Cameron at PFF underscore Mace on Twitter. And with me, as always, my partner in crime, Vishaal Gupta at Vishaal underscore Gupta 95 on Twitter. It's already been a crazy week. We had an insane upset on Thursday Night Football. We're over a month into the season, and it just keeps getting better. How are you doing, buddy? How are you living? You ready to make some money?
Yup, super excited. You're absolutely right. A number of crazy games we saw last weekend with the double-digit comebacks, and then going right back into last night. This is gonna have an unexpected outcome this season. I feel like that parity that we always talk about with the NFL. It's 100% true. You see it every year, and I think this year might be extra special. So it should be a fun one this year.
And it's so funny because I literally last week we were talking about I was like I'm pretty sure we were talking about on the show is that how I felt like the worst teams in the NFL were much worse than usual, and the better teams in the NFL were sort of a notch under the dominance that we saw last season. And now, I mean, just a week later, multiple teams that were just in the dumpster. The Titans got a win. Like
Yeah, right.
the Titans won a game. So, we're going to jump into that. And so for anybody who doesn't know how this show works, first and foremost, welcome in. We are breaking down all of the games that a few of the games that we love on the slate. But this isn't all of our games, and this isn't all the games on the week. So if you do have any bets that you have questions about or any games that you're interested in our take on, make sure you head over to our Discord. And the way you get in there is becoming a member, importantnonsense.com. And you can get in there. You can ask us all your betting questions. You can ask the fantasy guys all of their questions. And they love to answer your trade questions. So make sure you get in there and ask them about why you can't trade Saquon Barkley for Cam Scatterboo. And we'll break into some of that here just in a second. But first and foremost, we're going to be breaking down Thursday night. It was crazy. And of course, I forgot to write down my notes on Thursday night. I knew I did forget something, but that's okay. We run it off the cuff. It was a crazy game. This was insane. The Giants, it's backwards here. I don't know why.
Yeah,
Okay. They're flipped
yeah.
around here on
Giants
Betting
home.
Pros. The Giants were at home here. Wait. Oh, it's because this is
This
the
is
wrong.
later in the year,
This is the
right?
game later in the year. I don't know why I pulled up the game
Yes,
later
it
in
is.
the year, but anyway, the Giants were at home and they put a whooping on the Eagles, 34-17, obviously winning outright as 7-point dogs. It's been an incredible weird turnaround for this Giants team. We had Cam Scatterboo with a huge day. Jackson Dart finally slinging it around. We were concerned about him not being able to throw the ball downfield as much. He's beating him with his legs. He's beating him with his arm. And wow, this was just an incredible game. And I've been, looking into it. This Eagles team is a little bit fraudulent, especially at 4-2. And now the alarm bells are going off after 2 straight losses. To the Giants. I get it. It's a road game, but man, that was an emphatic victory for the Giants. And it's actually coming down to where I've seen a few stat lines here with some against the spread numbers. I even dropped one myself. This Eagles team over the last 2.5 seasons or since the start of 2023 is 2-9 against the spread when they're favored by more than a touchdown. That's not a great look when we see some of the dominating teams out there. When they get a touchdown spread, that's because that's about as far as some of these, games are going to stretch. We don't really see too many spreads that stretch further than that. They're 2-9, and Jalen Hurts is 0-8 against the spread himself. They did not look too great on offense. It started off okay for the Eagles. We had a couple of big runs from Saquon Barkley, which was nice for me. At first, I thought this was going to go perfectly because I had
Yep.
Saquon, longest rush, over 17.5. That cashed pretty early. And I had him over for carries. And it was all downhill from there. So, what did you see in this crazy, crazy matchup on Thursday night?
Yeah, you got to start with Dart and the Giants. I mean, I thought he looked really, really good yesterday, and it wasn't just his rushing ability, which we knew he could do from the first couple games that he played, but it was what he was able to do throwing the ball. I was super impressed. He was just making the right decisions almost the entire game. So many third down conversions that really helped keep drives going, kept them on the field, and kept the Eagles defense out for longer than they wanted. He had one third down pass in the second half to Theo Johnson where he was getting pressure right away, but he knew exactly what to do. Just made a perfect pass along the right sideline, and it was just super impressive to see from a guy who's just making his third start in the league, and a guy who people were questioning if he should even have been a first round pick. So really impressive from what you saw from him and that offense, and interesting to see if this will continue and if they can keep it up. And then on the other side, Philly. I mean, yeah, it has not really been great. Very deceiving 4-2 record. If you take out that second half against the Rams where they made that comeback in the game against the Bucks the following week, like take out those 1.5 games in there, they have not played well. They have not played well offensively, like at all. The first game against Dallas was fine in the first half, but then I don't think they scored at all in the second half. They go to Kansas City. They don't do a whole lot, but their defense is more than good enough to shut down Kansas City in that game. And then, the last couple games have not gone well. They didn't look good for the most part against Denver last week. And then last night against the Giants, they really struggled. So I don't know what the situation is. I don't know why they're struggling so much. They have a lot of the same pieces offensively that they had last year. They're just not able to put it together. That miss from Hurts to Devontae Smith, like you can't have that. He had time. It's not like he was getting pressure. There was nobody in his face. He had all the time in the world. You just can't miss it as badly as he missed it yesterday. So, a lot of concerns and not entirely sure what the fix is here. Obviously, they're not totally healthy either. Jalen Carter was out, Quinion Mitchell was out, so there's some stuff they can do to improve defensively, but on offense, I think there's a lot of valid concerns right now.
I mean, and I think another big thing too is like the Giants did all of this with Wandale Robinson and Lil Jordan Humphrey as their
Right.
receivers. Like this was a unit that was also very depleted, and they rode the back of a rookie quarterback on his third start in the NFL and a breakout rookie running back who, I mean, is obviously adored by the entire fan base of all 32 teams because he's just an absolute dog out there. But, when we talk about this Philly defense, like no Quinion Mitchell, I mean, for them to get diced up even without Quinion Mitchell is it's a bit of a shock, to be frank, because they
Yeah.
still have a lot of pieces. And one of the biggest issues that I saw was Zach Bond. He's in there, he's spying Jackson Dart, and he just could not keep up with him. The
He got
athleticism,
juked on that first touchdown run by Dart. I mean, it was not great.
it was absolutely vicious. He got juked out of his shoes, and that's not something that we've seen from him. Bond was, you know, in the defensive player of the year conversation last season, and he was just phenomenal. Like he was just a phenomenal player. So I don't know. I think that these problems are lying within the locker room and not necessarily within the roster, if that makes sense. We heard after the game or before the game, we heard some, comments on that AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley had a sit down. And then after the game,
He's
AJ's
trying to deny it. I don't
he's
know what the deal
yeah.
is there. Yeah.
AJ's trying to deny that there was a sit down, and he actually even tweeted and said that it wasn't a sit down. We literally just talked in the parking lot on the way to our cars, and it's like you can tell there's tension there, and it's making this team play worse. And to be frank, in a way, it's making Jalen Hurts just sort of make bad decisions. Like he was throwing the ball pretty good to AJ Brown, and then just sort of went away from him in certain spots. He was wide open for that would be touchdown that ended up being the interception. Like that is not a good look there. If you're not able to feed this number one receiver who is absolutely dousing man coverage against a team who's not all that great in the secondary, playing a ton of man coverage, like I don't know. Something's got to give there. I mean, I might be a little bit early on this, but I think that AJ Brown's probably going to be wearing somebody else's colors come the trade deadline, and it might be the Buffalo Bills. But
Ooh, that's a good one.
that would be a nice one to see. But
Yeah.
anyway, so it's going to be an interesting interesting draw for the rest of the season for the Eagles. They got to find a way to stop the skid. And big shout out to the Giants. I mean, I lost a lot of money. I know a lot of people lost a lot of money on that game last night with how the Giants played. I mean, I took the Giants under 16 and a half points. I thought it was a shoe in.
Well,
And
I'm guessing there are a lot of people who teased the Eagles down to -1 or whatever it would have been. So that's a tough break for a lot of people there.
yeah, exactly. So, crazy game there. But now we're going to move on to some more games that have some potential to also be crazy. And I'm breaking my own rule. I'm breaking my own rule. We got a Broncos bet, baby. We got a
Oh, here we
Broncos
go.
bet. We got a London bet.
Starting off in London. I love it.
We are taking the cash in London and running with it. So the Broncos and the Jets face off in London. Remember, guys, it's an early game, so get up early. Make sure you set your lineups, everything that you need. Broncos are 7-point favorites here on a neutral site. Game total on this one about 43 and a half points. And I will just start and get the hard stuff out of the way here before I gas up my Broncos. The Jets are in pole position to be the worst team in the NFL this season. It's sort of juggled around a little bit, but now only winless team left. They're 2-3 against the spread. Their last cover came in week 3 off that blocked punt against Tampa Bay, return for that touchdown. The story for this Jets team has just been a bit of the same every single week. Poor coverage leads to strong receiving efficiency. They fall behind early, leading to low passing volume for other offenses, and they can't tackle, which leads to high outputs on the ground and after contact for opposing running backs. And I think that that's just a good recipe for this Broncos team. This Broncos team's been throwing the ball a little bit. Now, I actually have a same game parlay that I, threw together for the PFF betting show. You guys can go check that out on the PFF YouTube channel if you guys want to see some of the, same game parlay and my more evaluation of this game. So I will keep it a little bit quick, but Denver's cooking. Denver has flat out figured it out. We're getting a much, much better play from Bo Nix. It's play reminiscent of what we were seeing from him last season, not from the first 3 games where he wasn't setting his feet and he was throwing from a bad base. He's gotten his feet under him now. He's throwing good balls. He's making better decisions. And that's what we've seen come out on the field. This defense has already played really well. Now, it's not quite the secondary that it was a few years ago, but what we're seeing is that this pass rush is as potent as it's ever been. This might be the best pass rush in the NFL. And Denver absolutely slapped Cincinnati as 7-point favorites, won outright against Philly, like we just talked about, as 3.5-point dogs. And so now, when we talk about this pass rush, it is going to be a problem for this Jets offense, who, frankly, a lot of their pressure struggles don't actually come from up front. Now, they're not the best pass blocking offensive line, but a lot of this is Justin Fields. Justin Fields runs into pressures, holds the ball. He's really not playing sound football, and he is a roller coaster under center, I guess, behind center because he's not under center. But when we talk about this Broncos pass rush, first in pass rush productivity, which is a rate that sort of combines pressures, knockdowns, sacks, and sort of gives it a full 1 number grade on just how efficient you are as a pass rush unit, how often you get home, and how much you win. They're second in pressure rate, and they are first in knockdown rate. This is crazy. I knew that it was a lot, but when I looked at this, I was utterly shocked to see this. The Broncos are getting a knockdown, so either a quarterback hit or a sack on over 25% of dropbacks. That is
No.
insane. Not only is that insane, it's 5% higher than any other team. So they are not only getting to the quarterback and causing some, quick throws and pressure, they are putting the quarterback on the ground. And when you do that, it really makes guys gun shy. Even the best quarterbacks, when you keep hitting them and keep hitting them and keep hitting them, you could hit Tom Brady all day long. Eventually, he's going to crumble a little bit. So, I mean, when we talk about that combined with Fields and his struggles, I just don't really see a way that this game doesn't end up being at least a 10-point difference. The Jets, they've played from behind at times, and sometimes they succeed, but we've seen a lot of instances where the hurdles are just far too high to climb. And if you get ahead of this Jets team and this pass rush is able to tee off on you, good luck. I just don't see a world where the Jets are going to be able to to mount some sort of comeback for a, backdoor cover on even a big spread like 7, which is obviously large for a Broncos team that really did struggle towards the beginning of the season there, especially against the spread. So, you know, I I don't know. It's gonna be one of these ones where, I'm definitely gonna be yelling at my TV at 9:30 in the morning here on the East Coast, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna be that far out of hand. V, are you seeing anything in this one?
No, just starting with the sack conversation you mentioned. I mean, you're totally right. A couple of those sacks Fields took last week against a not terrific Dallas defense were tough to see. You just can't take those kind of sacks in those situations. You just have to be better in passing situations than Fields has been. You just see how slow his process continues to be in year 5 or whatever it is for him. So tough to see. I think you're probably right on the spread. I'm leaning more towards the total on this one. I've been taking Jets overs for the last couple of weeks. Game totals overs in any game involving them the last couple of weeks. They've been hitting. I'm probably going to take it again this week. It's only 43.5, not too crazy. Obviously, like you said, their defense has been atrocious, so I have no concerns about the Broncos doing their part. And then, for whatever reason, Fields has been good when they're down big the last couple of games. He's able to get a couple of scores late in games to really hit the over, even if the first half looks bad. So I think that's something that can continue again, like a little backdoor over in this game. So that's probably where I'm leaning. But totally agree on what you're saying with the spread. It's going to be tough to see. The only question is the travel going to be an issue for either team? Because obviously these London games can go haywire just because it's just an odd situation for both teams. So that would be the only concern, but you can't really predict that. So, no reason to be overly worried about it.
Right. And I know that the Broncos have been there for a little bit. And obviously, they're going to be without Ben Powers. So, a little bit lighter on the offensive line, but you still are returning a bunch of the top, pass blocking offensive line members there. And I think that that's going to be a big thing. This team's going to throw a lot early to get a big lead and then really run out the ball and suffocate it. So I do like what you're saying with sort of a backdoor over there. And when we talk about this Jets team with overs, particularly over the last, they have overs in the last 3 games, all at this same number 43, 43 and a half. Over last week at 47. And that's
Yep.
actually low for a Cowboys over. Like Cowboys overs have been like 49, 50, like big numbers, which we're actually going to talk about a little bit later here. But this Jets team has gone over in 4 of 5 games this season. And the only one that they didn't go over, frankly, probably should have gone over. They just no showed
Bills did
against the
their part of
Bills.
that game. It's just the Jets offense, yeah, messed that one up.
Yeah, exactly. That was the Tyrod Taylor coming in. Justin Fields got hurt early in that one. So, it is one of those things that like this Jets team is going to have to figure something out for having Aaron Glenn and Sauce Gardner and some of these really, really strong players on defense. Like they haven't been looking that great. Sauce has looked rather human. He hasn't really performed up to standard. And then when we look at, Brandon Stevens, who is a guy that is just habitually in the right place, but just can't find the ball. When we talk about the slot, I actually really love the potential for Troy Franklin in this one, out of the slot and out wide, just because when we see what he's going to be able to do, no Michael Carter for the Jets this week in the slot, which frankly wouldn't matter. He's been one of the worst slot corners in the NFL this season, but they're going to get rookie Malachi Moore, and he's really not been much of a step forward either. I think you see a big opportunity for Troy Franklin here, and I even like some Troy Franklin ladders. He's part of my same game parlay that I talked about earlier, and I think that you could get him at or 50 plus yards for like plus 140, which is I think just a shoe in because we've been seeing a lot of Troy Franklin. He is that number 2 receiver on that team, whether it be because Marvin Mims has a sort of an iffy hip there. I don't know. He's the injury report has been sort of touch and go with him where sometimes they don't list him on it, even though it's very clear that he's dealing with it because he was out snapped by Pat Bryant last week. So, it's one of these things to continue to watch. But I really do like the potential for Troy Franklin there. So this is going to be an interesting game.
Good one.
And you're going to be able to wake up with some money after this one for sure in a couple of key spots there. The next game on the list here, I actually had to add an extra pick into this one, which was that Broncos pick, because we just have a few of the very similar reads on these games.
Yeah.
We are actually in line with two of these games. So we're gonna have a little bit of crossover. I will get a couple of things out of the way for this one, and then I'll let you dive into it. So we have the Rams. They're 7-point favorites on the road in Baltimore. Game total on this one, about 44 and a half points. And spoiler, we are both in on game totals to a degree, and we'll break into that here a little bit later. Some things I want to get out of the way is there is supposed to be rain in the forecast. Another spoiler alert, we're not afraid of it and we're not scared off from it. You are taking the over at 44 and a half. If my notes are correct here, tell me what you're seeing in this one and why you're encouraged by 44 and a half.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to start with Baltimore's terrible defense right now. That's all there is to say. I think they just continue to struggle, and they alone are giving up enough points for teams to hit the over by themselves. It happened last week with the Houston. That total was around 40 and a half, I think. Houston had 44 points last week. A Houston offense that has struggled mightily all season. They go into Baltimore and they drop a 40 burger on you. That is tough look for this Baltimore team. They continue to be the worst defense in the league in terms of points allowed, allowing 35.4 points per game. Baltimore ranks in the bottom 5 in takeaways, sacks, passing yards allowed, and rushing yards allowed per game. They are not doing anything well at all right now. They will once again be without Roquan Smith and Uzie at corner in this game, so still shorthanded. They did make a couple additions this week, traded for Gilman from the Chargers, and I believe they signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Not sure exactly if they're going to be suiting up, and even if they will, what their snap counts will look like. But those are obviously not high end safety help that is going to really change too much. I don't think so. I think we can continue to see this defense struggle as long as they continue to be unhealthy and just not playing well. And you don't want to have a bad defense when you're playing the Rams. They are back. They're very good. I'm relatively shocked at how good they have been because that Stafford back injury sounded not great in the offseason. I was highly concerned. I was kind of staying away from a lot of Rams players fantasy wise because I just thought there might be a decent chance we see Jimmy G sometime this season. And I've been wrong so far. And I'm happy to say I'm wrong because it's been so much fun to watch this Rams offense. They've scored at least 23 points in 4 straight games this season. They are second in the league in passing yards per game. Stafford has been terrific. Puka is a clear wide receiver 1 in the NFL right now. He has been unguardable. He is just playing out of his mind, and they're not easy catches. So many of his catches are creating so much contact and physicality with defenders, and he is able to just take that punishment and give it right back and get back up and go on to the next play. It's been really, really good. Their rushing attack has not been anything special so far, but this is a good matchup for them to try to figure things out and get the ship right in terms of running the ball. So I think we could see another big Kyren Williams game. He had a couple touchdowns last week. Could be another solid game from him. And, I think there's going to be enough garbage time in this game where Baltimore's offense will have a chance to put up a couple touchdowns late in this one to hit the over, I think, relatively easily. I think at 44 and a half is just too low given how bad Baltimore's defense has been.
Right. Like you said, I think one of the things that concerned me for the 44 and a half in total was like, we know the Rams are going to do their part, but
Right.
it's, no Lamar Jackson, and they had 10 points really because of it and did not look good for any part of that game last week. And, that's sort of where the concern lies for me. But so that's where my sort of thought process led me to where one of my favorite bets of the week is actually teasing the Rams up to 27 and a half team points. Because I think it was as low as like 26 and a half. And I was like, this has to be a mistake. I mean, I get that the rain is in the forecast and that's sort of where, they're relying on this, but there's nothing that's going to stop this team, not even the rain, from throwing the ball to Puka Nakua, who is just absolutely, like you said, phenomenal. He has been fantastic, by far the best receiver in the NFL right now. And I am kicking myself every single day that I could have gotten him in like the second round of
Yeah,
fantasy
100%.
drafts, but this is just the fact of the matter is that no one can cover the Stafford Nakua connection. And then you're just going to say, okay, and we also have Devontae Adams.
Right.
And when we talk about just some of the advanced metrics for this Baltimore defense, we're looking at 29th in team defense grade, 30th in EPA per play allowed, 28th in successful play rate, 32nd, dead last in touchdown drive percentage. They are allowing a touchdown drive on almost 40% of drives. That is not a good look. And when you're telling me that they're going to be coming up against Stafford, Nakua, and Adams while they play the second highest rate of man coverage, this is just some of the numbers here. All of those guys have above an 80 passing or receiving grade against man coverage. Stafford, 8.8 yards per attempt, 7 touchdowns, 133.7 passer rating. And then when we look at Nakua and Adams, Nakua, 3.82 yards per route run. Adams, 2.38 yards per route run. And they have a combined 9 explosive plays. The ball has only hit the ground 3 times when they throw to Nakua in man coverage. He's one of the most targeted receivers in the NFL in man coverage, and this is a time where he can shine. I was talking about this a little bit earlier today during the show, but this is potentially going to be one of those games where when we're a couple months down the road and Puka Nakua is knocking on the door of this receiving yardage record, we're going to point back to this game and be like, yeah, he had a buck 75 in that game. That really helped.
Yeah.
And this is going to be one of those moments. And even if the rain still plays a big part, I'm not too concerned about it. It's like you said, this Ravens defense is bad through and through, and they are really bad against the run, fitting the run. And now we can talk about some of the guys they got back. So they got back Marlon Humphrey, and they got back Kyle Hamilton. All right,
Hamilton, yeah.
I think they're both projected to be playing this week. And like you said, they traded for Alohi Gilman. I think that more points to they're going to try to change up how this personnel looks. I think they're probably going to try to move Marlon Humphrey back outside. I think they're going to try to move Kyle Hamilton back into the slot. And then I think they're going to put Alohi Gilman back on the back end and maybe sit down Malachi Starks, which sort of sounds a little bit weird to me. But what they're trying to do is find anything to boost this defense. But again, still no Roquan Smith, no Matabike. Those are huge losses. And even with those players, this was still a bad defensive unit. Now, they're not bad
Yeah.
when you go and look at the roster. If you go to our lads and look at the roster, you're like, wait, why is this defense so bad? Like, you guys have to be lying. Like, no, they're bad in pretty much every single metric, both standard and advanced, that you can look at. It's just not a pretty unit right now. And I think when you come up against one of the most efficient and effective offensives in the NFL and the Rams, it's just a foregone conclusion. So I like where your thoughts are with the 44.5. I steered away from it just because I was a little bit afraid of what the Ravens can do. But frankly, I mean, the Rams can hit that all by themselves. But I'm going to take the team total on there at 27.5 points. Like you said, they are allowing 35.4 points per game to teams. They've allowed over 37 to everybody not from the city of Cleveland. Like,
Yep.
that's a bad
This is not a
look.
small sample size anymore. This is 5 times
This is
they've done it,
5
which is
weeks. This is 5
that's a
weeks of
lot.
play. So, I'm out on the Ravens until they figure it out, which sucks because I've literally spent the first half of this show hammering the Eagles and the Ravens, who were my 2 picks to go to the Super Bowl this year.
Are they
So,
still is it correct they're still favored, though, to win the division at 1-4, which would be, like, unbelievable? I think that's still the case. So markets still like the Ravens to figure something out.
I do think so too. I mean, we could check on it also. It's going to be super weird when the winner of this division is 8 and 9. Like,
Yeah. Who would have thought?
that is what we're looking at. I mean, hey, never say never, but Browns
I mean, the
fans,
fact that Rodgers is the only healthy starting quarterback in that division right now is not anything anybody would have predicted.
yeah, exactly. And like, I mean, Dylan Gabriel, I mean, he didn't look horrible. That defense is good
No.
enough that I
Yeah.
mean, they're not this division's not going to have a wild card spot. But a team that you might not expect to win this division, I mean, definitely not the Bengals. I'm sorry,
No.
Cincinnati fans.
That's
The Bengals aren't winning the division. But there is a universe, and I've already said this. We don't live in the normal universe. We live in the alternate one where the weird stuff happens. So I mean, if I'm the one to sit here and say the Browns are potentially going to win, like,
get
you
some good
really
value there.
never know. There's some good value there. So I'm looking at it right now. Let's pull this up and I want to take a little segue here and see what what we're looking at for division winners here. So we still have the Eagles, which I mean, hey man, there's some value here for maybe the Commanders who've looked a lot better. Um,
Cowboys are trending up, maybe.
Cowboys are trending up. I mean, they're going to be able to throw the lights off the roof. I mean, they're trying to boat race every single team this season. So like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like that's high volatility play, but at 750, like that's better odds than if I recall because I was talking about this. Also, just as a side note, books should not be able to advertise like specials and stuff because they were advertising the the Bengals. They were advertising the Bengals a few days ago at plus 700. Like that's not okay. Like that's
No,
not
you
okay.
don't want
But
that.
so yeah, 750 to potentially make the playoffs. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, we were talking about Steelers minus 105, Ravens plus
Okay, let's
115.
move ahead. So,
V, tell me
the
don't
fact
do
that the
it.
Browns are below the Bengals is
Tell,
very interesting.
tell me not to do it, V. I'll place it right now. I'll sprinkle some in on a Browns division winner. I swear I will.
There's be no better time to do it now because if they go into Pittsburgh and win this weekend, that number is going to
It's
go up quite a bit.
it's gonna go up quite a bit. So that's gonna be an interesting one. But anyway, we're on to the next game, and we spent enough time kicking the Ravens while they're down. Man, this is one that wait, actually, this is the wrong game. Sorry. We're doing this one first because
So,
we both have some skin on this one, and I'm excited to talk about this one a little bit more. So I'll let you dive into it first and foremost, but let me set the stage here for everybody at home. We have the 2-1 Dallas Cowboys heading into Carolina to take on the 2-3 Carolina Panthers. Dallas, 3-point favorites on the road here. Game total on this one, 49 and a half. Panthers, obviously, got something going on the ground last week. Rico Dowdle looked pretty good. And, I don't know. I'm really liking the over here at 49 and a half. We'll break into it here in a second. But V, I know you have a read on the spread here. What side are you
yes.
leaning on?
I am going to take Dallas to cover the 3 points in this one. I think they are a significantly better team right now, especially offensively. We just talked about it a minute ago, but they are absolutely rolling offensively. Fourth in the league in points per game, 30.2 points per game. Third in the league in passing yards. They're tied for third in terms of passing touchdowns. A lot of those are Dak Prescott numbers. He's been lights out so far this year, even with CD missing quite a bit of time so far. He has been phenomenal throwing to a bunch of guys who really you wouldn't expect them to have as much success as they are, but he's making it work. Their rushing attack has been one of the bigger surprises in the league so far. Eighth in the league in terms of rushing yards per game, super efficient. What Javonte Williams is doing is great. That rush he had near the end of the first half last week was pretty unbelievable. I don't know if that says more about him or what the Jets were doing defensively, but that was very impressive and helped get them another touchdown right before the end of the half.
It's a little bit of
And they're going
both.
against
I think it's a little
a
bit
little bit
of
of both.
both. It
Yeah,
hurts me every time I see Javonte Williams rip off a big one because man,
I
has he
forgot.
looked
Yeah, it
good for
must be
the
tough for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Man, has he looked good.
He has
Sorry,
looked very,
continue.
very good. They're going up against a Carolina defense that I don't think is very good. Even with their shutout win over the Atlanta Falcons, they are still allowing more than 23 points per game. So in the other 4 games that they've played, they've given up at least 24 points, including 42 to New England a couple weeks ago. So I just don't think they're doing a very good job on that side of the ball. They're tied for the fewest sacks in the league at just 5. If you're not going to pressure Dak Prescott, he will tear you apart. He's very capable of doing that. Dallas's defense, much maligned so far this year. I do think they might be getting slightly better. I know they did give up 40 to Green Bay a couple weeks ago, but they surprisingly, like despite giving up that 40 number, I thought they played a little bit better in that game. They were starting to make a couple more plays than they normally would. And then obviously they looked pretty solid last week against the Jets, only allowing 6 points to the first 3 quarters. And then Jets had a couple of garbage time scores where, they kind of started playing some vanilla defense. So not too much to read into there, but I think, defensively, Dallas might be making some improvements. They were able to get to Justin Fields a couple times last week. Right tackle Taylor Moton will be out for Carolina in this one, so could be even more opportunities there. I just think, obviously, Carolina coming off the high last week of that double-digit comeback against Miami. I think this number should be probably closer to a touchdown. I think Dallas should have no trouble winning by 10 plus points in this game. I think they are significantly better team.
Yeah, they're just electric in offense. Like that, it's a surprise because this was the thing. is they could not run the ball for anything last season at
Yeah.
all. And that could have helped them a ton without Dak Prescott in the lineup. But now they have Dak, and he is playing really well. And it's actually opening up what this team can do offensively. Clayton Adams, too, deserves all the credit in the world. Offensive coordinator, he was the run game coordinator over the offensive line coach, run game coordinator over in Arizona. And he has just absolutely picked up the entire unit. They are playing lights out offensively. And, I think it is a combination of, you know, they looked really, really good against a bad Jets defense, but I don't really think that it's just a function of that Jets defense being so bad. They have looked really good against pretty much everybody they've played, and I don't think that this Carolina unit is that, much more improved. I mean, they're, if anything, very marginally improved from a really, really bad Jets defense. And, what we've seen is like they've been doing it without their top weapon, CeeDee Lamb. Like Ryan Flournoy had had what, a buck 10
Who
or
is this guy? You guys put a bunch of money. You guys made a bunch of money on this guy last week. I know over at PFF betting, you guys were all over him. I don't know who this guy
I
is.
had
How did you
no
guys find him? Why
I
is he
had
so good?
no idea that this is the mad scientist Ben Lindsay. If you guys aren't following Ben Lindsay over at PFF, Ben at Ben Lindsay underscore. I did not even know who this guy was. Went into the office to go watch the games. He goes, "We're riding Ryan Flournoy ladders," and I go, "Man, you're sick in the head."
That's a makeup player in Madden if I've ever heard of one. I
He's
mean, come on now.
literally a makeup player in Madden. But no, he was right on. It's all about the process, and he was right on it. And he hit big with that because that's that wide receiver too. They did not shy away. They didn't like try to say, "Hey, George Pickens, we're gonna ask you to play in the slot and play this role that CeeDee Lamb plays." They said, "Hey, George, we're gonna put you in the position for you to play well at what you do, and that's outside. We're gonna throw you a couple go balls against one of the best corners in the league who's a little bit step behind. He caught a couple of nice ones to him, but we're going to take this guy, Ryan Flournoy, that none of you have ever heard of, and we're going to put him in the CeeDee Lamb role and watch him absolutely cook out of the slot and cook out wide." And that's what they did. And, we saw what happened there. They just continue to input pieces. And why? It's because they are surprisingly, I will admit that I was wrong. I did not think Shoddy was going to be a great coach for them. I didn't. But they are coaching this team very, very well. And Dak Prescott is playing the best football of potentially his career. I know that he's had, MVP style numbers. And, he's probably not going to be in the MVP conversation just because I don't know that this team is going to win enough games to really get there. But when we look at comeback player of the year odds, he's at 225. He is the second shortest odds for comeback player of the year at 225. Just a week ago, he was at 400. This number is shortening week in and week out, and it's because he continues to play really well. And if we talk about this team, and I don't know if I mentioned it, but I am in on the over on this at 49 and a half.
Yep.
The mad scientist himself, Ben Lindsay, actually had a great line. He said, "I'm probably going to take the over on Cowboys games whenever it's under 50." And I love
That's
that.
fair.
I love that because when we look at this team, if I just talk about game totals that this team has had over their 5 games to start the year, 44, pretty modest against, a Philly defense in week 1 that, they showed some cracks, but they weren't in, full alarms blaring mode yet. 77 points the next week, 45 the next week, 80, and then
80.
59, 80 points. And that's obviously the tie against the Packers. And when we talk about where this team is in advanced metrics, or just generally in all metrics, but so for starters in points per game, they're top 5 in points per game. They're bottom 5 in points per game allowed. It's the same story with their advanced metrics. That's the same thing in EPA per play. Top 5, bottom 5. Successful play rate, top 5, bottom 5. Team offense and team defensive grade, top 5, bottom 5. It's just they're going to boat race every single team that they face here. And when I look at this team and potentially on defense, they could be improved in run defense. That was another big issue for them last year. Now, they don't really look great in a lot of the advanced metrics, but we haven't seen them really get hammered as much as they were last year. Like, they were giving up 120 yards to backs left and right, and now it's like, oh, well, the top end has sort of been around about, like, 80, 90. And
Probably
when we
helps that they're playing with some leads right now, so forcing other teams to maybe
Right.
go more passing. So if they can continue doing that, I think it would be a big help for this defense not having to face some of these
Exactly,
rushing attacks. We're going
exactly.
against Waddle now, who had a monster game last week. You don't want to be in a situation where they're giving it to him 20, 25 times and pounding it down your throat.
Yeah, exactly. You don't wanna get in that position. I was actually and that's I love that you just brought that up because that's what I was going to say here too, is that Carolina has been figuring out some things in the run game. Dallas's run D has been a little bit suspect, but like you said, it sorta comes down to that game script thing. Their lowest graded run defense, but in their bottom 5 in explosive run rate allowed. But if you are getting them out of if you're getting opposing teams out of that position, I think that you're really in a good spot where, hey, we're gonna force you to beat us the same way we're beating you. So
Yeah.
that's sort of what happens when you can throw the ball really well. I know that the old NFL was can you run the football and can you stop the run? That's not what the modern NFL is. The modern NFL is can you throw the football and then can you
Yep.
stop teams from running on you because you threw the hell out of the football? Like that's sort of where it's come down to. And I think that this team is going to succeed. I think that I'm comfortable that the Cowboys can do 90% of this over on their own. And I think
Yeah.
Carolina can get that last little bit to go over, sort of that backdoor, over that we talked about before. And because one of the things that I do like is that this Carolina offense has been absolutely desperate for a wide receiver too. They cannot figure it out. Hunter Renfrow has not been good. I don't know if we need to continue to talk about Xavier Legette being an NFL player
He
because
was pretty good, yes, last week though. Like that touchdown catch was nice. He
it
had a nice
was
play in the fourth quarter. I mean, I
it
thought it was a little impressive.
it was, but it's one of those things that it's like I feel like he almost is so inconsistent that it's like obviously it's a big surprise that he did that, but I'm just not really convinced that we're going to continue to see that, especially from, you know, they just have
And
not
he's a
been.
high second round pick. You kind of expect this from him on a more weekly basis, right?
Exactly, exactly. If first round pick, you want him to do this every week, and you just haven't necessarily seen that. And they're getting Jalen Coker back. We know that they really liked Jalen
That was big.
Coker, and he was super effective. I expect him to really be involved. You can get his yardage line at like 28 and a half, like 30. So I'm actually very tempted into taking that, maybe taking some ladders in that situation because I know that they're going to need to throw the ball. So we have Cowboys -3. That's going to be another one on my card as well. And we're going to go over on 49 and a half. The next game we have on the list here, I'm going to keep this one a little bit short because I feel like I'm kicking birds. I continue to just kick teams that have a bird as a mascot, and I'm about to do a little bit more of that with the Cardinals.
These guys deserve it, though. I mean,
It
what are we doing, Arizona?
What are we doing here? I mean, this line has moved quite a bit. It opened at 4.5, which was actually where I took it early on in
Oh,
the week.
nice.
I wrote about this one. But one of the things I'm still comfortable taking it at 7. I'll take it at 7. I'll take it at 7.5. I don't really care. This line is not priced right. And that's really just been the theme for every Colts line this week or this year. The odds makers are not pricing the Colts correctly. And I don't know what the Colts need to do, who they need to beat in order for them to do it. I know that they're not going to price the line correctly next week after they beat the brakes off of the Cardinals. They're going to continue to downplay the Colts, and I'm going to continue to make money off of it. But this is one of those situations where I am completely comfortable taking them at whatever number they want to put out here. This number could have been 13 and a half. I'd probably still consider it. What we're seeing from the Cardinals is, well, for starters, let's just get the logistics out of the way. Kyler Murray, he's questionable. Pretty likely he might be missing this one. That'll mean Jacoby Brissett starts. Now, Jacoby Brissett, not a bad quarterback, but it's a tough look and a little bit hard for just in the human element of the game. His only pass of the year so far last week ended up tearing Tip Ryman's ACL. Like
Really?
that's
Jeez.
that's a tough break, man. And it wasn't really that bad of a throw. Like he was trying to keep it away from he really fit it. He rolling out a little bit. He fit it between sort of a tight window. The linebacker just barely missed it. He put it on his back hip to keep him away from the corner that was sort of the cover two corner was sort of crashing down into him. Like, and he's trying to keep it away from him. He really didn't put it in a terrible spot, but it was just one of those things that it was like Ryman got sort of twisted up in a weird way, and when the contact came, it folded him up, and it ended up with his knee being just bent out of shape, and he had to get carted off, and that wasn't a good look for them. And I think it does something to your psyche if you're Jacoby Brissett. Now, there's nothing on the spreadsheet that sits there and says, Jacoby Brissett's gonna have a bad game because he tore someone's ACL last week. Like that's just sort of my knee jerk, like, you know, human nature thing in that comes into play when we talk about the game of football. But I think another big thing is like, I don't really think it matters if it was Kyler Murray or Jacoby Brissett. Kyler Murray had a snap come off of his face mask and he just stood there and looked at it. I lose a lot
And
of
that seemingly is what caused his foot injury, because I don't know where else he got hurt, because he immediately went out of the game after that play, and
and
Schefter tweeted he has a foot injury. Like, what?
yeah,
What happened?
what happened? Like literally got hit on the forehead. He's got an ego injury after what just happened. But and it's those type of plays that continue to hammer this team. I don't think I have to. Everybody already saw it. I don't have to continue to say it. I know I absolutely slammed AD Mitchell. It's funny that this is the matchup. We have AD Mitchell. We have AD Mitchell dropping the phone. If we're lucky, they'll both drop one out of the back of the end zone and just wash this thing away. But Amari DeMarcado, goal line fumble out of the back of the end zone, turnover. AD Mitchell, goal line fumble out of the back of the end zone, all both off big plays. But I think the big thing that we do have to talk about is, obviously this Titans team won from behind crazily. That didn't make any sense off that interception, fumble, touchdown to end the game there. Like, I get that that's a fluky play. I get that that's going to be the only time that happens all year, probably to anybody, frankly.
Yeah.
But that is just a microcosm of what this Arizona team has done week in and week out to beat themselves. And you do not get that opportunity against a Colts team who does not make mistakes. They're playing about as polished football as you can play. They execute to near perfection. They have the highest average spread differential in the NFL. They are covering spreads by 12.9 points. They're covering spreads by almost 2 touchdowns. That is crazy. Yeah. When we talk about the next highest team on that list in average spread differential, Detroit.
The Lions, I'm guessing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And man, they've been good, right? They're still only at 8.3. 8.3. This 4-point difference. That's a 4-point difference. That's a possession. That's a whole possession. They covered as 7.5-point favorites last week against Las Vegas. They won that game by 34 points. I'm pretty sure I think this was a game we talked about last week. I'm like a 90% sure that we targeted.
I think you had the Colts to cover last week.
Yeah,
yes, you did. You had the same thing.
And I think I said the exact same thing, that they could literally have made this game 14, and I'm still taking it because they're going to win by 30. Yeah. Like the issue here is not that, maybe the issue is not the word. The thing here is that the odds makers continue to just misprice Colts games. And I'm just going to keep taking them. I'm just going to keep hammering it. So, V, are you seeing anything in this one?
No, I think you're right. This is probably going to be on my card too. It's very interesting to see like kind of what odds makers think in this terms of the spread. If Brissett were to come in or if Murray were to play, like how much would it change? It doesn't seem like it's as much as you would think. So interesting to see. But yeah, I just continue to be super impressed with the Colts. I think the biggest thing for me last week that I saw was obviously AD Mitchell did what he did the week before. He comes in. I don't know if he played any snaps or if he just played limited snaps, but he was clearly benched in this game, and they were able to put in Ashton Doolin right behind him, and he just comes in and has a monster game too. Like the fact that you can come in, take out AD Mitchell, who was a high pick a couple of years ago, and put in Doolin, and they don't miss a beat, super impressive. I just can't believe how well this team is functioning right now offensively. What Steichen is doing is really terrific. What Daniel Jones is doing is really terrific. Jonathan Taylor has the quietest 3-touchdown game you'll ever see in the NFL last week. He just continues to roll. Like Yeah, everything is clicking right now, and like we haven't mentioned their defense once because we don't need to because their offense is that good right now. So yeah, right there with you.
Yeah, and it's so funny that you mentioned Ashton Dulin. We were talking about this when we were sitting over at the PFF offices watching the game. Ashton Dulin, they they were putting a hit out on Ashton Dulin. Like he
He
took
took a
a
monster hit early.
he
He
took
held
a
on though.
they were like, "Hey, we need to get this guy off of the field. He's beating us on special teams. He's beating us in the receiving game. Like, we need to get this guy out of the game." And that's what, I think you hit the nail on the head. When you can bring in a guy like Ashton Dulin, who, I mean, by all intents and purposes, is a fine player. He's okay. He's a guy. But like, you come in and he has such impact like that. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
what can another team do? Like,
yeah, you're
this
not
is
going to see that
when we
very
look at
often.
this Colts schedule. They're going up against the Cardinals, and then they're going to be at uh at LA against the Chargers, which, I mean, we can talk about the Chargers. They have no running backs. They have no offensive line right now. They play Tennessee again at home. They have at the Steelers, home Falcons, at KC in week 12, and then Texans, Jags, Seahawks, 49ers, Jags again, Texans. So literally, they
Yeah.
have a pretty tough schedule down the stretch, but
Those four
but
division games at the end, two against Jacksonville, two against Houston, those are going to be your make or break games. So that's kind of,
right.
you don't want to look too far ahead, but that's really what it's going to come down to. The rest of the season, if they can continue doing what they're doing, they should be fine up until that point.
Right, exactly. Like, that's gonna be where their real test is, but they're definitely gonna be going into that game 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They're gonna be going into week 12 probably 9-1. And I'm gonna bet them every
That's
week. I'm gonna bet them
yeah.
every week. So, that's just where we're at with this Colts team right now. And this is crazy because I was down on the Colts. The Colts were not the
Uh,
team that I thought was gonna be good this season out of the South.
no, definitely surprised.
And the last game. So we started with a bunch of the early slate, and now we've got a prime timer here.
Yes, we
Monday.
do.
This is the second game on Monday.
Yeah, it is a second.
Because
There's going to be a bit of an overlap, so it's not a proper
not
double header. There's going to be a
yeah.
staggered start.
A little bit
Yeah,
of a staggered start there. I think 2 weeks, or maybe it might be next week or a couple weeks down the road, that we do have a true doubleheader on Monday, which is
I
going to
think
be
that's next week. Yeah,
yeah, which is going to be nice. So in this one, we have the Chicago Bears heading into Washington to take on the Commanders. Commanders minus 4.5. Your game total on this one about 49.5 points, or maybe 50,
yep,
depending on where you're shopping. I mean, I'll just get a couple of things out of the way here. Washington top 3 in EPA per rush, yards per carry, explosive run rate. They're really running the ball at a really good rate.
yep.
Chicago can't really stop the run very much. Bottom 5 in run defense. But what Chicago can do is they can scheme up some open plays, which is going to come in when we talk about this Washington coverage unit, who is in turn last in coverage grade. Marshawn Lattimore has been a problem. They're really trying to figure it out. But last week, they looked really good. This Commanders team really, stuck it to who they played?
The
Chargers?
Chargers.
Yeah, and
Yep,
this was another one that we talked about because we talked about, can that Commanders uh uh pass rush get to
yep,
uh the get through this really patchwork offensive line and get to Justin Herbert. And
yep.
I
And I
think
was wrong about that one.
I
Why
think
we
we were
lost that
both
pick last week.
we were
Yep,
both wrong about it. I didn't think that they had the dogs to end up doing it, but I think what it shows you is that this team, when they're faced with an inferior opponent, they can figure some things out. And I think when we look at Chicago, they're coming off some rest, and I think that they're getting a little bit better. They're getting some courage in there. But I know that you've got a line on this game total. Tell me what you're seeing in this one and why.
yeah. I'm actually taking the under in this game at 49.5. I feel like this is just a little bit too high for these teams. We can start with Washington. Like you mentioned, their rushing attack has been really solid. A lot of that has been with Mariota under center. In those two games where he played, rushing attack looked really, really good. Passing game with Jaden under center has not been all that great so far this year. He has less than 240 passing yards in all three games he has played, and he's completing less than 64% of his passes in all three games, including two of those three games where he had less than 60% of his passes completed. They will likely be without Terry McLaurin again this week. So I don't know how efficient their passing game is going to be, but we should see continued success in their ground game. a big breakout game last week for Bill Krusky-Merritt. He just ran all over the Chargers last week. He could have a good opportunity to do it again this week against a Bears defense, like you mentioned, that is struggling a lot against the run. Ashton Genty had his breakout game as a rookie a couple of weeks ago against these Bears, 3 touchdowns, including a long one. Bears defense is getting healthier, though. They are getting Kyler Gordon and TJ Edwards back in this one, so we would hope to see some improvements there. And that's kind of where I think, even if the Commanders are able to run the ball, I think that's going to lead to a slower game script, not as many explosive plays, not as many quick drives. I think it could slow them down a little bit on that side. For the Bears offense, they've just been a little inconsistent this year. They're kind of ranking in the middle of the pack in a lot of areas in terms of like points scored, yards gained, stuff like that. They could have potentially 2 new starters on the offensive line this week with Theo Benedict making his first start at left tackle in the NFL. He's an undrafted free agent out of Canada. He started at right tackle a couple of weeks ago, but he could be making his first career start at left tackle this week. And then Darnell Wright is questionable. He missed last week or 2 weeks ago against the Raiders. He could be out again this week, in which case rookie Ozzie Trapillo could make his first career start in the league. This is a Bears offense that was struggling to run the ball already. Now that you bring in potentially 2 new offensive linemen, and it might not be a great recipe for their running attack to improve. We'll have to see. And then, like we mentioned, Washington's pass rush much better than expected. They got to Herbert 4 times last week. They're tied for third in the league with 15 sacks. This could be another situation where they're able to generate some pressure against a somewhat patchwork offensive line for the Bears. So I just think it's just going to be a little sloppy for them, especially the Bears and possibly from the Commanders. And I could see a lot of stalled out drives, a lot of settling for field goals. 49.5 is just a number that you would expect to see for 2 teams that are probably a little bit more polished offensively. At least both teams need to be a little bit better. Right now, you could see Washington do well offensively, but you should probably have some concerns about what the Bears can do, for a full 60 minutes of this one. That's kind of where I think maybe more closer to the mid 40s to low 40s would make more sense in terms of a game total.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. 49.5 is just a big number, especially for how these
Yeah,
teams are playing. And when we talk about how Washington wants to win games right now, it's running the ball, it's not throwing the ball. And when we talk about, we said Terry McLaurin, he's going to be out. Looks like Debo Samuel, he's still a little banged up. He's NIR with rest, but he's also a dual injury designation with a heel. I know he came back to a
yeah,
limited participation this week. And I think another big thing, another really, really, really big thing that I don't think is getting enough credit right now, or not enough credit, but enough attention, is that the Bears defense is going to be getting back Austin Booker. Now, I know a lot of people who are potentially watching this show are just said, who? Who are you talking
right.
about? Austin Booker is fifth round defensive end who had a lot of hype coming out last year, didn't really do anything for them, got buried on the depth chart. He came out and exploded in the preseason. Took a pretty, took I don't even really, he like stepped weird and took a bad shot to the knee and has been out. He's also been another player who's been out for this defense.
Yeah.
And like you said, they're getting back Kyler Gordon. Looks like they're going to get back TJ Edwards. But for me, the biggest one that I'm really excited about is seeing Austin Booker play, because if they can generate a pass rush, and this team can start
Something they've
playing,
not been able to do.
which they have not been able to do, if they can start generating a pass rush, this Bears team, I mean, they're 2-2. They've been surviving. I know that they had an early bye and they're past that bye now, so it's crunch time, but they can actually play some ball if they can come out and Ben Johnson can start doing some things and figuring some things out, and they can start holding teams to less than 50 damn points every single week. Like, they're going
Right.
to be much more improved. So I'm right there with you. I think 49.5 is too big of a number, and we're going to take the under on that as well.
Yep.
And that does it for us, V. That was a good slate. I think we have a lot of good games.
Yeah.
There's a lot of interesting games this week. I know we say that every week, but there's some ones that I think we're going to point back to here in a couple weeks and say, well, they were able to
Seattle,
accomplish.
Jacksonville,
Yeah,
San Francisco. A lot of good games
a
this week that we
lot
didn't
of
cover
really.
today. Worth watching.
And of course, if you guys have any questions on those games, want to get our takes, make sure you go to importancenonsense.com, become a member. That's how you get into our Discord. You can ask us all your betting questions there, get even more of our picks from the week, and then also ask the fantasy guys who you need to start and sit for your lineups as we're getting down into the nitty gritty of fantasy football season. And that about wraps us up for week 6. A little programming note. V and I may not be back this next week. We're both going to be on the road doing big, bad things. So the only way you are going to be able to get our picks next week is potentially through the Discord. So make sure you guys get in there, become a member, hit us up, and that is where our picks are going to be. And of course, make sure you guys follow both myself, follow V on Twitter, and all of the fantasy guys. Get them for all their info. And I think that about does it. V, do you have any parting words for the folks at home?
No, I think you covered everything. Enjoy the week. Should be a fun one. A lot of interesting games. With Kansas City, Detroit too. We forgot to mention that one. That's going to be an
Oh,
awesome
yeah.
Sunday night football game. That'll be really good. So yeah, enjoy the weekend. And like Mason said, if we don't see you next week, we'll see you the week after. But definitely get into the Discord and check out our picks. Ask us your questions. We're happy to answer those.
No corners. No corners and safeties in Detroit this week. I would love to plus 2.5, and I got absolutely
I was
terrified.
just thinking the same thing. I had it on my card like 2 days ago. Then I saw the injury report today. Like Brian Branch might not play. No Kirby Joseph potentially. Like I don't know if I can do that.
I don't know. I don't know. They're gonna play way too much man coverage to have that many bad corners and safeties out there against Patrick Mahomes. But anyway,
Yeah.
so we're off topic. But anyway, until next time, everybody, good night, good luck.